Jeff, Jim, and Carmela, part number 13. Mamet dropped them off at the Hilton Hotel. Jeff's room was on the third floor, and he got off the elevator and ran into his room to retrieve warm jackets while Carmela placed her foot on the door track to keep the elevator in place. It was now January 1965, and as usual, Istanbul was a damp, chilly place this time of the year. Jeff found some comfortable chairs in a position where they could see the city lights of Istanbul and the slowly moving ships traveling through the Bosporus. The sight was as magical and romantic as any place you could find in Turkey. When they were comfortable in the observation chairs and their winter jackets pulled tight, Carmela began to tell Jeff about her Japanese episode and the reason she was in Istanbul to be with her mother and dad to try to recover from the Japanese experience. She began by telling Jeff about her friend asking her to pose for the cover of a record album and her surprise at the success of the recording. Carmela paused and took a deep breath as she continued to tell Jeff the complete story. Not long after the success of the recording group and the many albums sold around the world, a Japanese magazine contacted me with an offer to pose for a clothing company that advertised in their magazine. I accepted the offer, and after I received my passport, I was on my way to Japan. Carmela would change her voice inflections as she was having some difficulty in sharing the Japanese event with Jeff. Carmela was determined to tell Jeff about the event without going into details. She was hoping Jeff would never see the VCR tape sold in shops around the world. Jeff, when I look back, I cannot figure out how I could be so naive and stupid enough to let what happened to me happen. During one of the photo shoots, after modeling some beautiful dresses, the Japanese photographer asked me if he could show me the sights and sounds of a small village near a ski lodge. He was originally from this small village and had relatives living there. He wanted to know if I could ski, and I told him I learned to ski on Mount Spokane. After visiting the village, where he did some spectacular photos of me with the ski slope in the background, I started to enjoy our time together. He continued to show me a part of Japan that the ordinary visitor would not see. I loved the excitement of seeing things off the beaten path. I began to fall in love with the country and this Japanese man. He lived in this beautiful house near the village where he grew up. I eventually moved in with him. One evening, the Japanese authorities came to the village looking for him. They surrounded his house and arrested him. That was when I found out what he was doing. The authorities told me he was secretly making videotapes and selling them on the underworld market. Who knows where the film or VCR tapes are now? After signing a statement with the Japanese authorities, I wanted to get out of Japan as quick as possible. The Japanese authorities told me I was not the only victim. He apparently was doing this with several other girls at other houses he owned. I have always taken responsibility for dumb things I have done. The thing that bothered me so much, he was making money doing this. This is the reason I am in Istanbul, trying to get my life back together. Lord knows who has me on VCR tape all around the world. Thank God I did not wind up pregnant, because no way would I have had an abortion. Carmela paused for a long time, looking at Jeff, and not once turning away. Jeff, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I will reveal the part that I must tell you, just in case our relationship goes past this point. I love the excitement, and yes, I think about it often. If it had been a legitimate affair, I would probably have stayed in Japan with this beautiful Japanese man and married him. I have never been one to cry over spilled milk. I wish I could take it all back, but I think all the time we must go on with our life no matter what. Jeff knew from one of his missions who was marketing the VCR tapes. Jeff wished he had known Carmela then so he could have warned her. Jeff told Carmela that the video market had millions of videos floating around in shops all over the world. Jeff said the odds of someone seeing the video who knew her was almost zero. Even if they did, they more than likely would not say anything about it, because it would be admitting to watching things like that. Jeff did not tell Carmela, but he knew the international gangsters dealing in videos like this. He also had enough information to destroy some of these international people who were involved in things that most of the intelligence agencies knew about. Jeff knew that as soon as he could make one phone call, the gangsters would be working overtime, taking that video of Carmela out of circulation. Jeff put his arms around Carmela and kissed her. He told her that meant absolutely nothing to him. Life is what it is, and I knew the first time I saw you, it would probably end or begin with me being in love with you, Carmela. Carmela got as close to Jeff as she could and said, Jeff, I'm an adult and have been away from home for a long time. I'm in Istanbul with no friends, and I do not want to be alone tonight. I know my mother and dad liked you, and I am sure they were saying to each other, I hope Jeff is the one to make her settle down. I tell you the truth, Jeff, I think they could be correct. So with all that weighing on me, I cannot be alone tonight. I will call my mother and tell them I will be home tomorrow. Mother probably knew I would not be coming home this night anyway. Jeff was on his way to falling in love with Carmela.